Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker.
You are, for the record, Hassan Ali Joho, EGH.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
You will appear before this committee and you are going to answer to the questions that we put to you on oath. So you opt to take the oath either on the Holy Quran, the Holy Bible, or the Holy Gita, the Hindu Holy Book.
The Holy Quran.
You may be upstanding. Take the Holy Quran in your right hand and recite the oath.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I, Hassan Ali Joho, do swear that the evidence I shall give before this committee on matter under its consideration shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
I'm told it's not caught on record. Get the, yes.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I, Hassan Ali Joho, do swear that the evidence I shall give before this committee on the matter under its consideration shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
You may take your seat and sign to the oath. Next to that, nominee, hand your original documents to the sergeant to pass on to the clerk for verification against what we have on you. We'll start with introductions. This is a committee on appointments of the National Assembly of the Republic of Kenya. Committee mandated to interview, in some jurisdictions called approval hearings, in others called vetting, to assess your suitability or otherwise to occupy office to which His Excellency the President has nominated you as Cabinet Secretary for the Ministry of Mining, Blue Economy, and Maritime Affairs. We'll start with introductions. Yours truly here is the Speaker of the National Assembly and the Chairman of the committee. On my right is the Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, Gladys Boss. On my left is the Clerk of the National Assembly, Samuel Njoroge. I'll invite members to introduce themselves, starting with Honorable Naisula.
Naisula Lesuda, MP Samburu West.
Kimani Shango.
Junet Mohammed.
Nelson Koech, Belgut.
David Kosing, MP Popo South.
Gikaria David, Nakuru Town East.
Masemeri, Teso South.
Abdul Rahim Daoud, North Imenti, Meru County.
George Gitonga Murugara, MP Tharaka, Tharaka Nithi County.
Owen Baya, Kilifi North.
Robert Mui Kadhiani.
Stephen Mule, MP Matungulu.
Didoraso, MP Saku.
Abdi Shurie, MP Balambala.
Mishimboko, MP Likoni.
Rehab Mukami, Nyeri County.
Caleb Amisi, Saboti.
For purposes of these proceedings, you will be referred to as nominee. So every member asking questions will address you as nominee, and that's what you are before us. So we'll start in earnest by asking you to tell us your name, your educational background, your work experience, and your key competences that make you suitable for appointment as Cabinet Secretary. You have under 5 minutes to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First and foremost, it is indeed a great honor to be in this House. Mr. Speaker, even though I must confess that I was used so much being on the other side when I was a Member of Parliament with you in the 10th Parliament. But Mr. Speaker, I want to begin by thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the favor upon me. And also thank His Excellency the President, Dr. William RUTO, for nominating me for the position of Cabinet Secretary, Mining, Blue Economy, and Maritime Affairs. Mr. Speaker, my name is Hassan Ali Joho. I was born and raised in Mombasa. I went to Tomboya Primary School in Mombasa, and later Serani Secondary School in Mombasa. So, Mr. Speaker, I have a bit of a different approach on how I want to present my introduction, because I started work and then further education came later. So after I finished secondary school, I ventured into business, entrepreneurship. I set up a clearing and forwarding company in Mombasa, then later diversified to opportunities in fintech, a bit of real estate, and largely logistics. Mr. Speaker, that takes about up to 2004, where I started my grassroots engagement. I ran in a by-election that was not very successful, but taught me many lessons. I became the chairman of LDP in Kisauni constituency. Then in 2006, I embarked on a journey to acquire my first degree. So in 2006, I did a bridging course to enable me to join university teachings. I did a diploma in 2007 and eventually graduated from Kampala University in 2013. Thereafter, Mr. Speaker, I did another degree from Gretsa University. And then I enrolled myself. Gretsa University is in Thika, in Kiambu County. Thereafter, I enrolled in Harvard Kennedy School of Government for a program known as Public Leadership Credentials, which is basically a pathway to attain mid-career master's degree on public administration. Mr. Speaker, I am the pioneer governor of Mombasa. I got elected in 2013. But before that, I was a member of parliament for Kisauni, the 10th parliament, where I served in different committees. I served in the Committee of Foreign Relations, Defense and Foreign Relations, which I was a vice chairman, and several others. I served as an assistant minister for transport during the Kibaki administration. I was governor for one term and another. So I served my 2 terms as governor of Mombasa, where I must say I drew a lot of experience in matters governance and transformational ways of doing business in government, Mr. Speaker. And the record speaks for itself of what I was able to achieve in Mombasa. In matters health, in matters basic infrastructure, in matters early childhood, and obviously lots of social programs that would cushion vulnerable families from the day-to-day challenges of our lives. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I'll now invite the Deputy Speaker to be the first to ask you a question. And like I said, answers must be concise, precise, and to the point.
Honorable Joho, the nominee before us, you're nominated to be the Minister or the Cabinet Secretary for Mining, Blue Economy and Maritime Affairs. And what Kenyans would like to know is that what do you see as the most pressing issues facing the Ministry of Mining, Blue Economy and Maritime Affairs that ought to be addressed immediately? And so if Parliament approves you, how do you plan to tackle the issues, considering the fact that the blue economy, if properly used, has the potential to, it's been said, has the potential to inject up to $4.8 billion into Kenya's economy and create over 50,000 jobs. So let's get your vision of what you do if approved by this House. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I must say that after I was nominated by the President, I took a little bit more time to do some research. And I want to state before this honorable committee how I see mining and blue economy and even maritime affairs. Probably that should be our focus. It actually should be our new economic frontier. Mr. Speaker, I saw, for example, that the mining industry contributes slightly under 1% of our GDP. So that led me to do some quick research that leads me to tell you what I think we should do. Mr. Speaker, we have to find, first of all, ways to generate confidence to investors and the Kenyan people. Mr. Speaker, I want, if you nominate me, if you approve me, I want to be a CS that listens. I want to listen. And I have learned that if you take time and listen to stakeholders, there's a lot of information and data that will enable you to make the right policy decisions, create legal frameworks that are responsive to the demands of the moment and attractive to investment. So what will I do first? Listen. 2, involve stakeholders. 3, do an audit of our HR capacity. We do our technological capacity audit and relook at our legal frameworks and our policies. Are they attractive to investment? And if they are not, I must embark quickly on coming up with the proposals and policies that do respond. Because, Mr. Speaker, there is absolutely no way that our neighboring countries have surpassed by far the 10% mark on GDP contribution. Yet there is a lot of, I want to call it speculation for now, because I don't have the data, neither do I have the real information of the kind of geological minerals that this country have. And I'm looking forward, if I get approved, to get the real data. So there are certain quick things that we must do to ensure that Kenya becomes an attractive point of investment, particularly in the area of mining, blue economy, and maritime affairs, Mr. Speaker. I thank you.
Majority Leader.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. CS nominee, let me begin by asking from your academic credentials that clearly looking at them bottom up. and having said how you began your journey for getting your degrees all the way to Harvard, Kennedy, it's Kennedy what? Kennedy School of Government.
School of Government.
What would you tell young Kenyans who may have started off life like you in terms of being able to pursue academic credentials later in life? That would be one. Two, you come from a region where the blue economy, as you say, holds very huge potential to create employment. And I'm sure probably from your research you may have known that there have been efforts by the government since 2015, 2016 to try and get Kenyans to work in the Caribbean, but have had problems accessing visas to travel through the US. What will you do as Cabinet Secretary to ensure, one, that we are able to train as many young people to work in the maritime industry, because there is a very huge potential, as you say, to create jobs in that industry. What will you do to help Kenyans, one, train, two, access jobs, even outside the country? The other question would relate to the mining docket. There is a lot of unregulated and unlicensed and what would be tantamount to illegal mining around the country. What will you do as CS to ensure, one, that any player who is in the mining industry in Kenya is licensed and regulated? And that also involves things like quarries. You've seen the recent cases in Nairobi, in quarry here in Embakasi, where abandoned quarries are left unfilled. They have now become graveyards for criminals. They are dump sites. What will you do to make sure that anybody who is involved, even in quarrying, is one, taking care of the environment, especially in getting to refill many of these quarries, and that industry is well regulated and anybody and everybody engaged in it is licensed?
Nominee.
Mr. Speaker, I would have been completely surprised if I was not asked the question of education.
Yes, Jeanette. Okay.
Let me add something.
We can go on and ask your question.
Oh, okay.
Take those two.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, I want to ask the nominee two questions. The first one, Mr. Speaker, just to add to what the majority leaders asked. This issue of the education background. So, Speaker, I think the nominee needs to, he has alluded to that now he's in the Kennedy School of Government at Harvard. We want to ask him to clear this matter, because this matter, it comes up during elections and goes down after elections. It comes up during elections, goes away after elections, you win the election. We want to slay that ghost today here. Can you share with us from the beginning to the end how it went? And my second question is that where I come from, Lake Victoria is next to it. What do you think what will you do as the Minister for Maritime to improve the lives of the people there in terms of fish industry? The fishing industry is almost collapsing. What programs do you think you will put in place to make sure that livelihoods are supported there by the people who are doing the fishing business or fishing in the Lake Victoria area?
Chair, maybe since he had begun answering that one on academic credentials, besides what you would say CS nominee to young Kenyans, and from what Jeanette is saying, it's clear that many people who serve in public office suffer certain prejudices from Kenyans regarding the academic credentials and all that in your past. Probably you can contextualize that in that. I am certain there are many Kenyans who are surprised that you can even converse in English. There are many who are asking how you would be able to be vetted.
I understand.
You cannot converse in English.
I understand, Mr. Speaker, and I must first of all say it is almost normal for people to cast doubt of Wapwanis. Sometimes, and Owen Bai and Mishi Boko probably will bear me witness. But we can and we are as qualified as any other Kenyan. Now, Mr. Speaker, I want to walk you through my educational journey and where I drew my inspiration.
More than what you did?
No. To respond to the question,
Okay.
I want to walk you through how I achieved what I achieved, and I'll continue to achieve.
With brevity.
Without a doubt. Mr. Speaker, first of all, I want to mention that I drew my inspiration from one Professor Ali Mazrui. Professor Ali Mazrui did not succeed in his Cambridge examination to be admitted in the university to attain his first degree. That aside, Mr. Speaker, I want to mention to this House.
Ali Mazrui is one of the most renowned
scholar
and admirable scholars.
We love him. He's one of our own from the
He's
coastal
not
region.
just the coastals. I love him even more. I named one of my
You must.
I named one of my brothers Mazrui.
Mr. Speaker, there is absolutely no way you cannot love Ali Mazrui, given his contribution to basically the general well-being of our society. But Mr. Speaker, this is the point. I want Kenyans to know that historical struggles are real. Are real. Someone should never imagine for a minute that if they come from places or spaces of comfort, that there may be a level playing field for everyone. Some of us come from very poor background. Mr. Speaker, if you look at my CV, you will see I actually had to take a break for 1 year, transiting from primary into secondary. Why did I do that? Because simply my parents couldn't afford school fees. I was not living in an environment that allowed me that opportunity to be able to quickly prosper in matters of education. That is why, Mr. Speaker, I can tell this committee today, and I want many Kenyans to listen to me. Do not ever imagine your hope dies by your previous struggles. We suffered. But what gives me pride is that we could turn that around. I actually turned it around. When I found the slightest opportunity for self-improvement, which I believe is a continual process, I grabbed it. And I'm glad to the laws of the country, laws of the land, there are processes that allows someone to improve and progress in matters of education. So yes, I did not do well in my secondary school. I got a D-, no doubt. But Mr. Speaker, I turned that around. Today, as I sit here, I hold 2 degrees that are before you. Mr. Speaker, I am on my pathway to attain a master's degree from the most prestigious university in the world. And that is achieved by determination. Mr. Speaker, I want to tell Junet, Honorable Junet, that first let me begin by telling Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah. Kimani Ichung'wah, I contributed to my own school fees in secondary school. I had an understanding at that time with my principal that he released me earlier than any other student because I needed to go work. And I did. And I contributed. At that point, what was my priority? To conclude KCSE. And I knew deep in my mind that I will always in my life have a chance to further pursue and acquire more knowledge. And like I said, I would have been very surprised if this question did not come up, because it comes up every time there's an opportunity for me to do something. Every time. It started when I was running for MP. It started when I was running for MP in 2007. Big conversation. And that time they even actually said that my nursery certification was fake, my kindergarten. But we succeeded. When I was running for governor, Mr. Speaker, and I'm saying this so that I hope we can bring this to a permanent closure. When I was running for governor in 2013, it also became one of the biggest campaign issues. I know there were even attempts to bribe some people in the institutions that I was with. Somebody once told me, someone came to me and told me, Bana, we've been told to suspend your degree to purport we're undertaking some investigation, just to not to allow me to meet the required timelines to submit my papers. But we overcame that and moved on. Then, Mr. Speaker, you also will remember, because it is a matter of public knowledge, the administration of President Uhuru Kenyatta, particularly the first term, had quite some issues with me. So again, there were those who felt that they may have an opportunity now to permanently remove me from the political equation by dealing with my education credentials. So, Mr. Speaker, I report before this House, there is no government institution, be it Higher Learning Commission, DCI, EACC, even a judicial process that has not investigated my credentials. And I commit before this House. In fact, they should be looking at this space. Probably if we succeed, if you nominate me, and we do well, the next, if I'm approved, the next vetting, you should see a PhD, Mr. Speaker. I'm telling you, watch this space. If I come back here, if God wills, you approve me, we do some real work, better the lives of the Kenyan people, you'll call me Dr. Hassan Joho, the next sponsor.
Mr.
Speaker, on the other matters.
Hold that. What was the outcome of the judicial challenge on your papers?
Mr. Speaker, they lost. And I actually know who sponsored the process, but they lost. You cannot take what is rightfully mine. It's as simple as that.
Go on and answer the other questions.
So they lost. And I know, unfortunately, there's an old man there in Mombasa, an 82 old man who keeps sponsoring people to pursue the, and I'm sure probably...
Focus on your suitability.
Mr. Speaker,
yes.
I want to answer the question by Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah on the blue economy. And I want to combine it with maritime affairs. And I like the fact that you particularly picked on the job opportunities. Mr. Speaker, this ministry is a wealth creation ministry. This ministry is a great employment creation ministry. Now, just to give you some statistics, today, the global demand on seafarers is almost at 1.9 million. We in Kenya are contributing barely 0.2%. So out of, basically what I'm saying is out of the 1.9 million, we have just about 4,000 Kenyans that are getting into the industry by way of employment. Now, what are we going to do to change that? Number one, we must redesign our training program to fit into the demand of that opportunity. And I know there's quite some work that was done previously and continues to be done, but we may need to have a conversation. And if approved, I'm going to be running back quickly to this august house to engage honorable members on realigning the policies around training to be able to fit the demands. And I pick particular example. If you train someone to board a vessel, how you earn or how you get opportunity to be employed is almost similar to that of a pilot. So even as we see today, we have probably a good standard of training issued or undertaken at the Bandari Maritime Academy. But Mr. Speaker, everybody that graduates from Bandari Academy does not automatically qualify to get a job because they don't have something called sea time. They don't have sea time. They have no avenues to get sea time. So that for me is a matter of urgent intervention to ensure we combine our training with sea time, even if it's just basic. Nobody will employ you if you have never been on board a sea. So that is one area of policy realignment that I'm going to have to engage this Honorable House. The other important area, Mr. Speaker, if you look at the statistics today, countries like Liberia are carrying 100 or plus more folds of their flag in vessels. We in Kenya, we're just about 5. From what I've heard from private sector, I've engaged the shipping industry, and I have been told, Mr. Speaker, the vessels that are carrying our flag are just about 5. What this therefore means is that our young people cannot get an opportunity because there is no level playing field. What do we need to do? To look at the policies. What is Liberia doing that is right that we can't do? What is it? Because we have so many vessels calling into our ships. What a local flag means, Your Excellency, is that the revenues generated, first of all, from the vessel will land in Kenya. Priority in terms of job opportunities will be for Kenyans. And opportunities to even design some internship program for attaining sea time. It is easier to take to Kenyan companies, and I'm going to do that. I think, Mr. Speaker, and I'm clear about it. Let me say I'm clear about it. If you approve my nomination, I will hit the ground running. It certainly shall not be business as usual. It will not, because I see. And by the way, Mr. Speaker, so that I give you the context on how and why it is urgent that we quickly realign policies that conform to the needs, it is because seafarer, by all standards, qualifies to be a prestigious job. There's no seafarer, at whatever cadre, there's nobody who earns less than $1,000. So, Mr. Speaker, I'll quickly run. The other question is on the fishing folk, and Mr. Junet, Honorable Junet, talked particularly on the lake areas, and I'm imagining he's looked at the demography well, because I was just looking at some statistics. And I looked lake areas from Uhuru Bay, you pass Siaya into Soiport, Sioport in Busia. And the numbers that are produced, nothing justifies that our neighboring countries are processing more. Understood that they may have a lot of, the area might be wider, but they're processing 100-folds more, particularly for export. What do we need to do? And I've seen this problem, for example, in the fisher folk and artisan fishermen in the coastal region, from Kiunga to Lunga Lunga. And government has put some effort. Let me just acknowledge. Government so far has given boats and some storage facility. And they're building landing sites that are some complete and some yet to be complete. But that alone doesn't solve the issue. There is the issue of capacity building. These fisher folks, these artisan fishermen and women should be trained. Should be trained in how many fronts? One, processing. Basic business skills. Basic business skills. Storage. And value addition. Mr. Speaker, growing up in Mombasa, I used to see a company that used to be called Wananchi Marine. That company was employing on a daily basis not less than 3,000 women to do fish processing. But as we sit here today, Mr. Speaker, there is no single factory that I can directly point at that does the same. And it's going to be my business. Number one, to create a lucrative environment for investment. You have to combine private sector investment, government support, and people's participation. And idea number one is, for example, if we want to help the fisher folks and fishermen generally, we must develop strategy like creating collection points. And I tell you, Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah, why I say that, because one boat goes out, comes with possibly 20 kilos, and they're likely to be possibly around maybe 100 boats of such capacity. But everyone who comes don't call into the same landing site. What do? They find means to buy ice blocks and store. But imagine if we put them in a cooperative, manage them and organize them, train them. You arrange collection points. Why we don't export our fish very well is because we don't consolidate it. We don't consolidate our catch. So for me, I should have a truck picking from Kiunga into Owen Bay's constituency, Owen Bay's into Mombasa, into Kwale and Shimoni. Consolidate it so we bring adequate catch that will qualify for even export market. Mr. Speaker, Honorable Ichung'wah talked about on restoration programs of quarries. There is a law in place, but it's not enforced. What do I think needs to be done? Number one, we must create synergies with county governments. Why do I say so? They are beneficiary of the royalties. We must train and encourage the Kenyan people to abide to the required environmental standards. Number three, we must work on our enforcement, and this will require a multi-sectoral approach that I'm probably going to initiate. And maybe on the policy issue is that we may consider requiring or requesting when you are licensed to mine, so that we are assured you will actually work on restoration, create a bond, a surety bond, whether by way of bank guarantee or whatever formula that works, so that you deposit it in government, a similar amount or an estimated amount. So if you don't restore the site that you've mined our geological wealth from, we have bonded you. So you just don't walk scot-free. Mr. Speaker,
you've answered all the questions.
I think I have answered all the questions.
Good.
I thank you.
Those who have never heard of Ali Mazrui, I encourage you to read a few of his books. Africans, A Triple Heritage, Africa's International Relations, and Africans from Slave Ship to Spaceship.
Mr. Speaker, if you have some extra copies, I'm going to pick some from you.
Pardon?
Good. If you have some extra copies, I'll pick some from you. If you've read, unless you're collecting them.
I'll share with you. Naisula?
Thank you, Chairman. To the nominee, during your preamble, you thanked His Excellency the President for nominating you, and that is why you're before this committee. You are in public having said, and I quote you, "I don't ever dream of engaging with RUTO. Mimi niongee na RUTO, niongee na RUTO nini?" I want to put it to you that if this committee nominates you and the National Assembly approves you, you'll be sitting in a cabinet where His Excellency the President will be chairing. I would like to know whether mutaongea nini kwa hiyo cabinet. But that's beside the point. I want to get to the real issues. But that's also a very valid question, because it will be important to know how you will engage as the minister, if approved, cabinet secretary, and with His Excellency the President. Now, there is tax exemption on exploration and accumulation of exploration expenses for offset against income upon full commercialization. What I would like to know is, do you think exemption should be tied to certain activities and for certain duration of time? There are people who are exploring in this country in perpetuity for 30, 40 years, just so that there is tax exempt. And I suspect they've actually explored, and they've gotten the gemstones or whatever they're exploring, but because of the exempt, they continue to say they're exploring. To my last question, the Mining Act prohibits civil servants from dealing with minerals. According to Article 81 of the Mining Act, no person, whether civil or military, and serving in government is allowed to directly or indirectly acquire or hold any right or interest under any prospecting right. Despite this provision, high-ranking government officials, public officers, state officers, and civil servants are involved in mining. And I'm sure some of them have started looking for you since you were nominated. What mechanisms and plans will you put in place to ensure that revenues from gemstone mining do not end up in the pockets of cartels without disclosure? Actually, I thought cartels are only in agriculture, health. I've come to realize during this appointments committee, cartels are everywhere, including mining. And how do you intend to protect and shield communities from unscrupulous miners and cartels?
Nelson Koech.
Mine also was a quick one too, on the same gemstone. Late last year, the president had this launched, it's called a Voi Gemstone Value Addition Center. It is ill-equipped, nominee. I don't know what you will do to make sure there is value for money, and the small-scale miners are also able to be, are able to sell their mines in Voi Additional Center, Gemstone Additional Center. Number two is the mining law sets up several mechanisms which Kenyans can enjoy direct benefits from minerals. That is, for every sale of mineral, proportion of value of mineral is paid to the government as royalty, which is shared between national and county government and mining communities in the ratio of 70, 20 to 10, respectively. How then will you do differently to ensure the same is adhered to mining communities and county benefits?
Nominee.
Honorable Naisula, you talked about exploration, but my research tells me, and I'm yet to get a detailed brief from the ministry, that you're imagining there are people doing exploration for 30 years. There are people doing prospecting for 40 years. How that makes sense, I have no idea. Whether it happens anywhere in the world, certainly it cannot be. How do you prospect for 40 years? So we need to quickly relook into our policy, Mr. Speaker. We can't as a country. And this explains why mining GDP's contribution is under 1%. It can't continue like this. It can't continue. And Honorable Naisula, you are very right. If you thought you saw cartels, I've come to learn within this short period of time that I've been nominated, there are greater cartels in the mining industry. And Mr. Speaker, if you approve me, that is where I begin. Remove the cartels, remove the brokers. Mining industry in Kenya cannot be a market of speculators. Mr. Speaker, I've also learned that before someone hits the ground, you'll find instances where a company has exchanged hands more than 10 times. Someone has gone, applied for a license, given a license, sold it to the speaker, then sold it to Naisula, then sold it to Owen, then sold it to some farm in Canada, that one sells to China. All that time that they're speculating and gaining profits, the Kenyan people are losing. They are losing. It's only that I am, and this is a task I'm going to take, because it looks like Kenyan population really do not have an idea of what geological minerals may be in the country. They must get involved, and I'll take it upon me to ensure they get involved. So I identify completely with your sentiments, Honorable Naisula, and this is an urgent matter that must be discussed and be realigned in a manner that works and defeats those cartels. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Honorable Naisula told me nitaongea na.
You don't have to answer that. Only fools don't change their minds.
I was going to say it in Kiswahili.
Go on and answer the other question.
Wapumbavu tu ndo wabadilishe mawazo.
There's a question on communities.
Yeah, I'm coming to that.
Yes.
Number one, I've already picked an issue on, for example, timely disbursement of royalties. Mr. Speaker, I was talking to some people from Taita Taveta County, some community, who told me they have not received their share of royalties on a certain mine for the last 7 years. That can't work. What we need to quickly do is to ensure we create systems that function. And number one priority is that the Kenyan people primarily should be priority in terms of receiving their royalties and benefits. Mr. Speaker, we also have to have a conversation. I am looking forward, for example, to quickly engage the counties. The counties, according to the current law, receive a good chunk of royalties. Maybe we may need to look at our legal framework on how we can also cushion the communities in the counties by ensuring that we maybe ring-fence some of the resources to development. Why do I say this, Mr. Speaker? You know very well. Geological minerals do get depleted. There are generations that will come many, many years after us, and this country must have something to show. We can't, it just can't be a story that Kenya had this and there's nothing to show. So, Mr. Speaker, I am going to engage and create working synergies with the counties and formulate, create a framework that is efficient in disbursing royalties. And also, if I go a step further, these communities must be organized. We must organize them. We must encourage them to get into cooperatives. We must encourage them in some instances. And I like that question because it gives me an opportunity to address something that we call back home as ancestral interest. Many of us, our populations, and it's not only in the coastal region, as squatters, Mr. Speaker. I saw that during the SGR. When they were constructing the SGR, Mr. Speaker, many people were compensated, but the title holders and the residents of certain areas were completely ignored. So there are certain regulations or laws that we must, and I'd be happy to come and engage the community to see how we can improve on them. Mr. Speaker, on Honorable Koech, I haven't seen the Gemstone Center at Voi, but I'm looking forward to see it. But what I think the mining industry needs to do is to focus on private sector investment. Government should not be in the business of competing with its citizens. So there has to be concerted effort and specific focus to encourage private sector investment. Why do I say so, Honorable Koech? Because they will meet the global standards. I am not sure whether the Gemstone Center in Voi is properly equipped to test and process what they get. that is an urgent business for me. And I'm going to look into it as soon as I have an opportunity of possibly if this honorable committee approves me. So that we even are able to test, identify what minerals should be allowed for export, what should be kept home for value addition, and what should be put in the market and what values. And I have seen it. I've seen people from Voi coming into Mombasa with a small packet of many, many gemstones and almost sell them at wholesale price. Someone else picks them up, some foreigner will pick it up, go to Hong Kong, go to Thailand, and make double or triple the money that, that Kenyan ordinary man would. So I will look into that as a matter of urgency, Honorable Koich, and I'm hoping that I see the passion. It will work together.
Posing, then Gikaria, then Emase. In that order. Take those three.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Joe, I hear you talk about policies and systems. Should you get the favor of the House, my proposal will be concentrated on the actions. If you live in these policies and systems, you will leave that office with systems and policies, having not even approved. So that's my advice. But my question is, the governors who have been ministers, Honorable Joe, have not gotten a good rating from where I sit. They have been accused of being desk ministers, governors, former governors. I don't know whether they got a lot of comfort when they were governors or they became two bosses when they were governors, and therefore they are not actually seen in the field. What will you convince this committee to believe in you? And particularly, I think I like the word you said, that what we lack is confidence. I think it's true, because I come from a mineral county, which is West Pokot. Confidence of investors coming to invest, and also confidence of the people accepting investors. What will you convince this committee, Honorable Joho, that you will be in these mineral counties in building confidence, and for both sides, the investors and, or you will go to Mombasa, because now blue economy in Mombasa, will you be also be in mineral counties to build confidence? Thank you, Speaker.
Can I?
Three.
Thank you.
Just record and answer them quickly in the order they came. Gikaria, go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman.
Switch off your mic. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I think the exploration is something that the nominee has said he's going to look into, and I'm saying this in relation to the corporation, the National Mining Corporation, which is a corporation of government, which is in exploration and does nothing other than just getting salaries and doing nothing in exploration. As we look at, I was trying to look at the law as to whether we have timelines for exploration. I remember in the Energy Act, we have 2 years for exploration. After that, your license expires. The other bit that also needs, you need to look at is the Mineral Rights Board, the licensing board that gives, there is a lot of bureaucracy in terms of giving licenses on time. It's like they don't have a service charter for if you apply today, by what time should you be able to get your license. But the most important thing is, let me talk about the artisanal miners. Honorable nominee, artisanal miner is a big area of employment. And of course, we know there is a cooperative that has come in place. But again, the licensing of these cooperatives and artisanal miners has become an issue with the Mineral Rights Board. So what are you going to do to help our young men and people who work in doing artisanal mining across the country, who do the illegal mining per se in quotes, but who have been applying through cooperatives, and then it takes forever for them to be able, and getting very, very bad prices or bad for the product that they get from the mines. Thank you, Honorable Chairman.
Mary Mase.
Thank you, Speaker. Nominee, my first one's a comment. It's good that you mentioned about redesigning our training programs. Through you, Speaker, recently the Maritime Authority advertised for jobs for Kenyans to work in the vessels. And the requirement was just basically training in hospitality, front office, and a foreign language, which is German. But I put it to you, they could hardly raise the numbers that were needed. So seriously, it is an area of concern because we are losing out on opportunities as Kenyans, yet we're talking about unemployment. So, Honorable Nominee, if approved, I think that is one of the areas you need to seriously focus on to ensure that we're training in all disciplines related to maritime so that we can benefit from the opportunities. So my question is, and this is from a Kenyan, in 2010, the then Internal Security Minister, the late Honorable George Saitoti, tabled a list in Parliament containing 4 members of Parliament, including yourself as a suspected drug trafficker. The US Embassy also stated that Kenya anti-narcotic unit suspected that you were involved in narcotic trade. Are you aware of these grave allegations and the effects of drug addiction in our nation? If so, kindly shed some light on that. Thank you.
Answer those 3.
Honorable Kosing, my record speaks for itself. I was not in any way a desk governor. I am a ground person. I am a ground person. That is why I left Mombasa County with the best cardiac center in the country and possibly in the continent. I left Mombasa County with state-of-the-art cancer treatment center. I left the county with a lot of social development programs that are on record. So I'm just picking a few. Mr. Speaker, today if I have a cardiac issue, I want to tell you, and I will encourage all of you and those that have visited Mombasa, if you have a cardiac issue, Coast General is your place. Because they have the state-of-the-art cath lab with well-trained doctors that constantly do open heart surgeries, fix cardiac issues quickly, and that was my leadership. So I provide leadership, and I will. And in the mining and blue economy and maritime, if you approve me, I will hit the ground running, Mr. Speaker. On matters of licensing, I don't know whether this committee understands the process that is applied on licensing, but I'll quickly share from what I found out. And I'm saying that this I found out from the private sector. Number 1, you go to the potential area and engage either the landlord or the communities or the county. Then you get a consent. Then online, there is what they call the cadastre that covers the whole country in potential areas in matters mining. Then once you have the consent, you peg on the cadastre. And then at that point, you do a physical license application. And I've already heard of many instances that people have falsified documents to peg on the cadastre. That is number 1 hindrance on efficiency on issuing license. Because then therefore, a true potential, and this basically mostly is done by speculators. So the true potential investor does not get an opportunity to even apply. So we first of all must fix how we handle the pegging. We must have technological means of ensuring that whatever is used to peg a site meets the standards. I have had, for example, someone would just upload a newspaper, and that acts as a consent, because the technology currently doesn't have the ability to authenticate some of those documents that are uploaded. So What do I say? I say we need to digitize end-to-end. We must digitize it end-to-end. And Mr. Speaker, let me put it this way. Even in our own country, I know for sure, for certain, there are young people with enormous capacity and potential to help us develop. I must also say that I was taken by surprise when during Manamana, there are some young Kenyans who quickly developed and designed a communication program. And people are communicating like an app overnight. It tells you young people have the capacity. And for me, Mr. Speaker, if I'm approved, my urgent and priority first step is to involve the young people. They can help us grow. They can help us fix many things locally. Like, for example, I believe something like a cadastre, where it holds a lot of information that is very strategic for the country, must be fully hosted here. Cannot be hosted, for example, by a competing country. So for us, what do? We invest in technology end-to-end. Right now, I'm informed that they have done it, but there's quite a human interaction phase that we must try and do away. It will create efficiency. It will also deal with corruption issues. So I hear you, Mheshimiwa, and I can tell you that that will be my priority. And also, I want to talk on the artisanal miners and licensing. They go through similar challenges, Mr. Speaker. They go exactly how a private sector investor suffers is the same way, unfortunately, the artisanal miner also suffers. So that, for me, is something that I must look into. For me, Kenyans must be allowed to exploit their wealth so that they can better their lives in a manner that is organized, safe, and most importantly, beneficial to them. So that I will do. Mheshimiwa Imase, you talked about training. I couldn't agree more that we must design our programs or the architecture of training in a manner that fits the needs of the players. We must do that. I mean, there's no two ways. What do I think I will do? Obviously, I will begin by evaluating the Bandari Academy. But I'm going also to try and forge partnership with, for example, Technical University of Mombasa, the universities around the lake areas, and many others, because those job opportunities are not only for the coastal people. They are not only, they're for every Kenyan. And therefore, we must create a partnership in designing an architectural plan that conforms to what the industry needs. And I will work closely with private sector. Mr. Speaker, finally, Honorable Imase talked about a citizen that sent you SMS.
A question on SMS.
On the drug baron issue. You know, the irony for me is that when you want to pick records selectively, that is what challenges me. The quagmire for me is I don't understand if you come and table a report. Obviously, there must be some subsequent actions. And I want to also, this is one matter that I really hope we can put to permanent closure, Mr. Speaker. When I was campaigning in 2013, in Mombasa, there were billboards put up. Don't vote the baron, vote change. Mr. Speaker, let me begin with that report. Yes, I thought he tabled the report on a dossier that he was given, that was passed to him through the American embassy. What normally happens is that when you table or pass a dossier, it is investigated, I believe. It is worked on. So that happened. The late Honorable Saitoti, may the Almighty rest his soul in eternal peace, came back to Parliament with a report. He came back to Parliament and tabled a report of investigation and the outcome. And it was a multi-agency, almost international investigation that clearly stated, and I'm going to only speak for myself, that no iota of evidence was found against me. Mr. Speaker, let me put it this way. I'm not a fool. I come from a family that is blessed with businesses. And I'm thankful to Almighty for what I have. So number one, that investigation was concluded. Number two, Honorable Emasi, first term as governor, I was the greatest critic of the Jubilee administration. Had lots of personal altercation. They came after me in businesses, in many fronts. Don't you think for a minute, if I was involved in any illegal activity, I would have survived that regime? They would quickly have used it to, like they say, I remember, I'm sorry, Mr. Speaker, just indulge me a minute. I remember at that time, the president came to Mombasa and said, "Tutamalizana na huyu." They would have used it. So please, Kenyans, I want to assure you here today that I do clean business. Visible, that can be audited, can be seen, physical, and therefore, please, Mr. Speaker, if anybody talks about a report that was tabled on the dossier, also talk about the report that came after that, that cleared us. And I am particularly interested because first point for me to call and try and interest investors to come, I am planning to go to the United States. They are known for big investments in mining, and it is my plan to go and engage them, interest companies from the United States.
The same Americans gave you a visa to accompany me as foreign minister to the US.
Exactly, Mr. Speaker, just after that. In fact, just after the I went.
Immediately after that.
And I've been to America many times, and I intend to continue to go to America, because America really, Mr. Speaker, I think we're going to be looking that way to get investors to come and invest, particularly in the areas of mining. So, Mr. Speaker, that matter, again, I hope it comes to permanent closure. Because it's all like education, it comes up only when they're seeing an opportunity.
But don't be pigeonholed to America. There are even bigger mining countries like Australia.
No, in Canada, Australia.
Others, yes.
And even here, by the way, Mr. Speaker, I don't know whether you know, I've just found out, in fact, just yesterday, that Kenyans have invested heavily in mining in Tanzania. So even here, we have them.
Are you talking about me?
Daud Murugara, order nominee, no altercations with members. Daud Murugara, then Owen, in that order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. To the nominee, Honorable Joho, what you have said about cadastral and all that, your predecessor, when he was there, Honorable Vuria, when he came for vetting in 2022, he talked about the NIS